Senator Ludlam.
Thanks, Chair. Along the same lines, or Deputy Chair, was the department or anybody within Infrastructure Australia, I'm happy to put this to everyone at the table, asked to advise the Prime Minister before he made his announcement as opposition leader that the Commonwealth would no longer fund public transport?
Senator, we do not provide advice to oppositions.
Yeah. So, okay, that decision was made effectively where he may have sought advice from elsewhere, but it certainly didn't come from any expertise within the department.
Certainly not from the department, Senator.
Okay. Have you been asked to provide any advice or backing or evidence or anything at all to back up this rather unorthodox decision since then? Or you just had to take it as a given?
Senator, the government's infrastructure policy and its fiscal statement were provided ahead of the election. They are the government's position. So
you just had to suck it up. Have you been asked since then for any assistance or advice in justifying such an extraordinary decision?
The government has confirmed its decision, Senator.
It's not a question I put to you. Well,
I don't think I can give you any further advice, Senator. We provide advice on a range of projects. The government has confirmed its decision in relation to these matters.
Yeah, all right. Have you specifically been asked by either the PM's office or the Infrastructure Minister to justify the decision arbitrarily that Commonwealth won't be funding urban rail projects anymore?
Again, they are the government's position, Senator.
So you have been or you haven't been?
I think the Secretary's answered your question.
No, he hasn't, or I wouldn't keep asking it. I understand what he's saying, that the decision was made beforehand. You don't give advice to oppositions. That's reasonable. I'm trying to establish whether you've been asked to provide advice to justify or back this decision up since this government came to office.
We provide advice on the government's investment program, Senator, and that's all I can say.
Could you provide for us any economic or productivity grounds justifying such a decision? I'll tell you why I'm pursuing this line of questioning. It seems utterly arbitrary that we would have a merits-based process that you've been involved in as long as I've been in this building around infrastructure decision-making, that the Prime Minister one day wakes up and decides he hates urban rail and that there'll be no further Commonwealth funding for it. How is that then backed up? Like, how does that work into your spreadsheets and your models for establishing merit-based project selection?
I don't think I can comment on your assertion at all, Senator, in terms of all I can say is that the government has made a clear policy position known in relation to the funding of certain urban rail projects. I don't think I can comment any further.
Okay. So you can't provide us with any justification?
Senator, it is a policy position of the government.
Good, okay.
And that is the position.
All right.
But having said that, can I just? I think the government is on the record, both within the Parliament and also publicly, as to its rationale for the decision. Hence, I cannot comment on your comments, but certainly the government has made clear its position on these matters.
I've heard a position. I've never heard a rationale. Well, no rationale's been provided, but I'll check the Hansard.
The government's been on the record, I think, in relation to its position on these matters.
But not on the basis of advice from you. That's all I'm trying to get clear.
We've not provided advice in relation to those decisions.
Thank you very much. That's what I was after. Just a yes or a no. Where was the Barnett government up to in terms of submissions to access federal funding, both for the Max Light Rail and for the urban and for the proposed airport rail? Understanding there's quite an active project team in WA working on Max. What visibility did you have up until that decision to cancel funding of the Perth airport rail project specifically, or proposal?
The discussions with the Commonwealth were very early. There was a notional allocation by the former government of $500 million, but there had been no...
For either?
Well, that's right, but there had been no detailed discussions in relation to the allocation of those funds or the project. I'll just check with my officers.
Thanks.
That's correct. The allocation was for either project, and there'd been early discussions with the West Australian Government in relation to those, but they were at the early stage.
The Commonwealth, through you, had provided, from recollection, $4 million, which actually was on budget, was within the forward estimates for studying Max, the light rail project specifically. Would you say that discussions or the Commonwealth's visibility of that project was at a more higher or a more advanced level than it was for the airport rail? That's how it looks from the outside.
Senator, there was funding provided by Australian Government for the business case and the very early planning works on the Perth Light Rail.
Yeah. Was there any such commitment or visibility for an airport, either surface or subsurface rail proposal?
Senator, I might just ask Mr Wood to respond to that question, also to clarify some earlier involvement on that project.
Yeah, Senator, at the last budget, the then government announced a funding commitment for the Perth Airport link for early planning works. I think from memory it was a $5 million commitment that was subsequently overturned by events with the current government's policy. With the at that announcement, the department joined the steering committee for that project.
I missed a little section, sorry.
Sorry?
Just come back, I missed it.
I was saying there was a commitment by the previous government of $5 million towards early planning works for that project.
5, was it? Okay.
Yeah, and the department joined and attended the steering committee.
Yeah.
Then with the following the election and the new policy, we have withdrawn from that steering committee.
I would expect so. Are you getting any money back from the Western Australian Government unspent out of that $5 million?
No spending had been entered into. The funding agreement hadn't been finalised, and no spending was provided.
Not of the $500 million, I thought it was 4, but you're telling me it's 5.
I'd have to check the number to clarify, but it was no funding was transferred to the West Australian Government for the airport study.
Okay, so because there was a state funding commitment. You've indicated to Senator Pratt that Premier Barnett hasn't attempted to follow that up with you, which I find extraordinary. So it's just been taken off the table. Are you aware of, either from Infrastructure Australia since you're here, or from studies done in the department, that road building has positive mental health benefits for communities?
I'm not aware of any study to that effect, Senator.
None? Anything at all? You might want to take it on notice. It's a comment that the now Prime Minister from opposition made, that roads have strong environmental, social, physical and mental health benefits. To me, it sounds completely off the wall, like he might have been hallucinating at the time. But if there's any evidence or anything at all to back that up, you would be the people who would have that.
Well,
or Senator Ronaldson.
I think that's a comment rather than...
No, the question is whether you have...
quite frankly.
I'm editorialising a little, but the question is a very serious one. Is there any evidence at all to back up this extraordinary asserlding?
Senator, you asked about recent studies. We're not aware of anything. But
any studies? You as long as you like.
There is a worldwide research process around roads and their externalities. Without some more specific detail, I'm sorry I can't help you, but there is a very large research community around road investment globally.
Anything within that research community indicating that roads have a positive impact on people's mental health? Or did the Prime Minister just make it up?
Well, again, come on, Senator. If you've got questions,
that is my question. Is there anything that you're aware of?
Don't run the commentary through. Just ask the question.
Could I just calm everyone down? I mean...
Sorry?
Senator Heffernan's chairing it and he hasn't thought fit to intervene.
No, but look, I'll answer the question for
job.
you. If you're on the freeway going from Campbelltown to the city in the morning and it takes an hour and 10 minutes, I don't know, I think that would have an impact on you mentally.
And a negative impact.
If someone cuts in on you and just misses the car coming head on, that can have an effect.
We're on the same page, Senator Heffernan.
But I mean, you know, as much as you like, we can talk about that. But
no, let me just put a question. I'll cease editorialising. Have you, within that large research community, of which there's substantial expertise within the Commonwealth, can you point me to any paper, any research project, anything at all, that would back up the Prime Minister's statement?
I'd have to take that on notice, Senator, and come back to you.
Very much appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Could we get some guidance, Senator Ludlam? When did he make this statement?
January 8 last year, I believe. I can read you the whole quote if you like. It's a remarkable reading.
I might answer it for him.
I'll put a couple more questions if I may, Chair. The National Urban Policy has a goal of reducing dependence on private motor vehicles. Is that a policy, this might be to you, Senator Ronaldson, is that policy still upheld by this government, or has there been a policy change?
Sorry, Senator.
That's all right. The National Urban Policy has a goal of reducing dependence on private motor vehicles. I'm interested to know whether you would tell me that that's a policy of the former government, or whether this government still intends to uphold that policy directive to either of you.
Perhaps if I may start, Senator, that is a policy of the former government. The government is currently looking at its range of transport issues, but the national urban policy was a policy of the former government.
Yeah, but is it so it's no longer the policy of this government, or
well, I don't think the government's had an opportunity to provide any formal position on it as yet, Senator.
We've been here for 6 months, nearly 6 months. Senator Ronaldson, maybe I could put it to you. Is it the policy of the current Commonwealth government that we should reduce dependence on private motor vehicles?
Well, I don't know whether I'm in a position to answer a broad brush question like that.
It's very specific.
Well,
Really? Why? It's quite a specific question. This is national policy that guides investment decisions running to tens of billions of dollars.
Yeah, but if I was to ask you, do you agree with freeing up recreational drugs? It's none of my business what you think, and I think the same question applies to him.
I want to know what government policy is. I'm asking the Minister. That's why we're here.
Opinion.
If Senator Russell was unaware, and it's entirely reasonable that he would be unaware, he can say, I'll take it on notice.
Either is fine. It's a fairly serious and substantive policy question, Senator Heffernan.
Well, I think perhaps if I can assist, obviously we haven't had the opportunity to brief Minister Ronaldson on these issues. I think it's best if I just outline to you that the National Urban Policy is a policy document of the former government, and the current government is currently considering a range of transport policies.
When will we know, again to you, Senator Ronaldson, if you like, where the Commonwealth's policy lies? Surely you will agree this has substantive impact on investment decisions ranging to the tens of billions of dollars.
Well, Senator...
Well, you will be made aware of the government policy when or if there are outcomes that the Secretary is related to. I'm not in a position to give you a scoop, Senator Ludlam, so it'll happen in due course.
I'm not interested in a scoop, I'm interested in some facts.
The cavalry's arrived, Senator Ronaldson. But don't feel like General Custer.
Sorry?
Don't feel like General Custer, but the cavalry's arrived.
I'll leave it there, Chair. It's been quite instructive.
If you're the best of the Indians, I don't think either of us have got many problems, Senator. But
I just love the matching ties.
Jono,
is it a uniform?
Who would like